James Cameron took a real-life tragedy to build the story of Titanic, and while he paid attention to many details about the ship, the lifestyle back then, the lives of some passengers, and more, some details slipped and raised many questions, such as how third-class passengers were treated during the sinking of the ship. Released in 1997, Titanic is one of James Cameron's biggest cinematic achievements, becoming the most expensive movie ever made at the time as well as the highest-grossing movie of all time, a spot it held for many years. Although Titanic has now become divisive, it continues to be regarded as one of Cameron's best works. Based on the real-life tragedy of the RMS Titanic in 1912, Titanic tells a fictional story led by fictional characters, but through them, viewers met characters based on real-life passengers of the ship and got a glimpse at what life on the Titanic was like. Titanic, then, follows Rose DeWitt Bukater, Kate Winslet, a first-class young woman, and Jack Dawson, Leonardo DiCaprio, a third-class passenger, who over the course of 4 days, met, fell in love, and defended their romance from those who looked down upon them, mostly those from the first-class side of the ship. Unfortunately, Jack and Rose's story was destined to be tragic, as Jack became one of the many victims of the sinking of the Titanic, while Rose was eventually rescued. Titanic saw Jack and Rose doing their best to get to a safe spot as the ship sank, and they came across Jack's friends Fabrizio, Danny Nucci, and Tommy, Jason Berry, and other third-class passengers as they tried to get to the lifeboats, but they were being kept far from the deck and locked behind gates, which led Jack, Fabrizio, and Tommy to bring the gate down so they could all have a chance to save themselves. However, this is historically inaccurate, as third-class passengers weren't locked behind gates as the Titanic sank. Why Cameron's Titanic changed how third-class passengers were treated as seen in Cameron's movie. There were clear separations between first, second, and third-class passengers on the Titanic, and they had designated areas where they could walk around freely. In accordance with U.S. immigration law, the Titanic had to have gates between the ship's decks in order to avoid the spread of diseases, but these weren't used in cruel ways as seen in the movie. Third-class passengers were in the bowels of the ship and thus didn't have direct access to lifeboats, but they weren't purposely kept behind gates to avoid getting to the lifeboats, and third-class stewards were reportedly instructed to have passengers put on their lifebelts and go to the deck, but many refused. The misconception around how Titanic's third-class passengers were treated, and which might have influenced Cameron's portrayal of it, was that more third-class passengers died in the sinking of the Titanic than first- and second-class ones, so there's the belief that they were sacrificed. Only 3 third-class passengers testified during the investigation of the Titanic's disaster, and there's no evidence of attempts to keep third-class passengers back. This inaccurate idea of how third-class passengers were treated during the sinking of the Titanic is so engraved that it was featured in James Cameron's movie and others that have represented the Titanic's tragedy, and they have only perpetuated it.
With a gentle touch you